In section 7.9, we are going to factor a GCF and then factor x squared plus bx plus c. So it will have two steps, okay? But before we start that, I'm gonna do example 0 where we're gonna practice factoring x squared plus bx plus c. Just to remind you, if I check the first one, there's actually no common factor. This has no coefficient, this has no x. So the only way I could factor it is into two binomials. Because it's x squared, it would be x times x. And then I consider the last number. I want to think of factors of 20. And I want to make sure they add up to 12. So let me think. 20 is 4 times 5 is 20, but 4 plus 5 is 9. 10 times 2 is 20. 10 plus 2 is 12. Okay, so 10 and 2 work. And it's all positive because there's all positives. So x plus 10 times x plus 2 does equal x squared plus 12x plus 20. Let's do one more example to review. Again, there's no common factor. This doesn't have a coefficient. This doesn't have an x. So I'm going to go ahead and factor it into two binomials because it's what we call quadratic or degree 2. Because this is x squared, it must be that it was x times x. I'm going to look at what I times to get negative 15. And I want to make sure that those two factors add up to negative 2. So negative 15, I could do 5 times negative 3 to get negative 15. 5 minus 3 is positive 2, but I want a negative 2. So how about negative 5 times 3? Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. So those must be the two factors. So negative 5, positive 3. Okay, now that we reviewed that, for the new examples, we're going to factor completely, which means if there's a GCF, we take it out. If there's a trinomial that factors, we factor it more. Okay, and it gave me the hint to check for a GCF first, so I'm going to do that first. Let's see. So let me check each of these terms and see if they first have a common factor that's in number. 7, 28, and 21 are all divisible by 7. Do they have variables in common? X squared, x, no variable. So 7 is the greatest common factor. Okay, let me take out the 7. 7 times something to get 7x to the second would be x to the second. 7 times something to get 28x. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 4x is 28x. 7 times something to get 21. 7 times 3 is 21. Okay, I took out the greatest common factor. However, now I want to factor the trinomial if possible, which means this thing might get to factor more, just like we did before. Okay, so I'm going to keep the 7 in the front. And because this is quadratic, x squared, I'm hoping to factor into two binomials. Okay, again, because this is x squared, I will put x times x here. Okay, let me look at the last term and think of things I multiply to get 3. What do I multiply to get 3? 3 times 1. Okay, does that add up to what I need it to add up to? I want it to sum up to 4. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So 3 and 1 actually do work. Positive 3, positive 1. So this is completely factored. I first took out the common factor, and then I looked at the remaining trinomial to see if I could factor it more. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Okay, first let me check and see if the coefficients have a common factor. 5, 10, and 40. I can take out a 5. Okay, do they have any variables in common? X squared, x, no variable. No variables in common. So let's take out the 5. 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times something to get 10x. 5 times 2x is 10x. Minus 5 times 8 is 40. I did take out the greatest common factor, but because I know more now, I'm going to look at the trinomial and see if we can factor the trinomial more. Okay, because it's x squared, it's going to be x times x. And then let me look at the last number. Think about what I times to get negative 8. Let's see, negative 8 is, well, 4 times negative 2. What does it have to add up to? It's supposed to add up to positive 2. Okay, so 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 4 plus negative 2. 4 plus negative 2 is 2, actually. Okay, so what was that? A positive 4. okay, and a -2. And the order doesn't matter as long as you have the correct signs with the correct number. That's completely factored. That's the best I can do. Okay, let's try a few more. Okay, for this example 2, I'm going to take out a variable because I can see that x to the third doesn't have a coefficient anyways. Because this is x to the third, I also know I'm going to take something out because we don't know how to factor anything that's to the third, which is, the fancy word for that is cubic. Okay, so x to the third, x to the second, and x. They all have an x, so I'm going to take out an x. Okay, if I take out an x, now this is just x to the second plus 16. If I take out an x, from the x squared, I'm down to x plus 28x. If I take out the x, I'm down to a 28. Okay, let's see. Now I'm going to try to factor this trinomial more. Because it's squared, there's a good chance it'll work. So x squared means x times x. It's all positives, so I can go ahead and put the positives in. Okay, let me look at the last number. It's 28. So I'm going to look at the factors of 28 and see which ones add up to 16. So 28, if I do 7 times 4, that's 28. 7 plus 4 is 11. That's not 16. Let's see, 28 times 1 is 28. 28 plus 1 is 29. That's not 16. 14 times 2 is 28. 14 plus 2 is 16. Okay, that's the winner. So 14 times 2 is 28, 14 plus 2 is 16, so those are the factors that are correct. I completely factored. Okay, let's look at B. X cubed. It doesn't have a coefficient, so I don't have to worry about it, but it is cubed, so I know I'm going to take out x's because we don't know how to do cubes. Okay, this has x cubed, x squared, and this has x. They all have at least an x, so I'm going to take out an x. Okay, if I take out an x from x cubed, it goes down to x squared. Minus 4x squared. I keep the 4, I take out an x, I'm down to x. If I take an x out of 45x, I'm down to 45. Which is good because I can factor that. Okay, now x squared minus 4x minus 45, I'm going to try to factor into two binomials. Since it's x squared, I'm going to do x times x. Okay, let me see what I times to get negative 45, and then verify that it adds up to negative 4. Okay, what is 45? 15 times negative 3. 15 times negative 3. 15 minus 3 is 12. That's not right. How about 9 times negative 5? 9 minus 5 is 4, but I want negative 4. So let me switch the signs. Negative 9, positive 5. Negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4. So now I can make it work. Okay, the last two, I'm going to give you a variable and a coefficient for your common factor. But same idea. Okay, let's check the coefficients first. I have a 10, a 70, and a 100. Let's take out a 10. Okay, let's check the variables. X to the third, x to the second, x. They all have at least an x, so I'm going to take out the x. Okay, so 10x times something to get x to the third, x times x to the second. 10 times 7 is 70, x times x is x to the second. 10 times 10 is 100, x times, I don't need anything else, I already have the x. Okay, I'm going to keep the common factor on the outside because it's important. If I were solving it, it would produce an extra answer. But I'm going to factor the trinomial since it's x squared, I'm going to do x times x. Okay, let's see, for 10, what do I times to get 10? 5 times 2. What does it have to add up to? I want it to add up to negative 7. Well, 5 plus 2 is 7, but I want it to be negative 7. So I'm going to make it minus 5 and minus 2. Because those still multiply to positive 10, but now they will add up to the negative 7 I want. Okay, last one. Okay, 11x to the fourth minus 11x to the third minus 66x to the second, and I know there's got to be common factors because those numbers are high and the exponents are high. So between 11, 11, and 66, I'm going to take out 11. Okay, x to the fourth, x to the third, and x to the second. They all have x's, and they all have at least x to the second. I want to take out as many as possible without going over. if I don't take out as much as possible, especially with the x's, I won't be able to factor it. Okay, so if I take out 11x to the second, this must be x to the second. 11 times 1 is 11, x squared times x is x to the third. 11 times 6 is 66, and the x squareds match. Okay, let me just factor my trinomial. X squared, it's x squared, so x times x. Let's see, this is a -6, so I'm going to need a positive and a negative. Okay, it's to get 6, 3 times -2. 3 minus 2 is 1, but I want -1. That's okay. That means I have the right numbers. I just got to switch the signs. So let's make this -3, +2. -3 plus 2 is -1. So -3, +2. And then that is completely factored.